Hi, this is Jack from Jack's English, and you'll be pleased to know we'll be back to Sherlock today. We're going to learn a very useful expression from Sherlock and Watson's conversation. So let's get into it. So, as I said, we're looking at Sherlock and Watson's conversation today. We're going to start out by looking at a very useful phrase that we use in day-to-day life, and then we'll kind of look a little bit deeper at some of the other parts of the conversation. So let's start off by watching this clip from Sherlock Holmes.
Look at the case. There was something tightly packed inside it.
Thanks, I'll take your word for it.
So today's expression is, I'll take your word for it. It's a pretty common expression, but you kind of have to use it in certain situations. So I'm going to give you two cases where you can use I'll take your word for it. So case number one is where somebody is an expert at something and they explain it to you. And you don't really know, they have much more knowledge than you, so you just say, okay, I'll take your word for it. For example, somebody who's very good at chemistry explains to me, Jack, this is this chemical reaction, and they explain to me, and I don't understand, I don't know chemistry, so I say, okay, I'll take your word for it. Case number two is where you don't want to find out, you don't want to check because it's quite unpleasant or something you don't like. So, for example, somebody goes skydiving and they say to me, Jack, skydiving is the best. Now, I don't want to go skydiving because it looks pretty scary, so I say to them, okay, I'll take your word for it, because I don't want to find out for myself. So, there are two cases. Case one is I don't need to check, they are an expert. Case two is I don't want to check because it looks quite unpleasant. Okay, so let's go back to Sherlock and see how Sherlock responds to Watson.
Thanks, I'll take your word for it.
Problem?
Yeah, I'm not desperate to root around some bloke's dirty underwear.
So Sherlock perhaps was a little upset, and then Watson responded and said, yeah, I'm not desperate to root around another bloke's underwear. So with this in mind, what case are we talking about here? Is it case one, Watson doesn't need to check? Or is it case two, Watson doesn't want to check because it's unpleasant? What do you think? If you answer two, then you are correct. Because he said, I don't want to root around some other bloke's underwear, which is very unpleasant. And that brings me to my second lesson of today, root around. This is a phrasal verb, meaning to search through many items. So in this case, root around, search through many men's underwear, very unpleasant. Or perhaps you go to the market and you see lots of mandarin, a huge stall of mandarin. You root around the mandarin to find the most delicious ones. So that's root around, the phrasal verb. And then there's one more thing I want to mention before you go, which is the word bloke. I must mention this because it's a very British word, but very simply, bloke means man, and it's what we use in Britain very often. So let's summarize today's lesson. We learnt three things. Number one is I'll take your word for it. And we have two cases. I don't need to find out, you're an expert. I don't want to find out, it's very unpleasant. The second thing we learnt today was the phrasal verb root around, meaning to search through many things to find something. Thirdly, and perhaps very importantly today as we're a British channel, is bloke. Bloke is the British word for man. Okay, thanks for watching today's class. I'll be back very soon to teach more British English. See you soon.